Welcome back to We Cultivate the Pod, where we explore the intersections of language and communication, culture, and identity. Today's episode is with Sonia. She was born and raised in Italy and therefore identifies as Italian, but also as Black Italian and mixed race. Her story shows what happens when identity collides with perception. When stereotypes, biases, narrow ideas of belonging dictate how others see you, even when it's not your own truth. We talk about what it's like to not match the white European standard, despite being born and raised inside of Italian society, and the added weight of navigating this as a woman, including very real concerns and questions of safety that I have also experienced as well. So yes, this is also the first episode where I have personally weighed in with my own thoughts and experiences on the topic. And I just want to remind everyone that these are deeply complex issues, that whatever we discuss here is specific to what we each have experienced, that if it doesn't match what you've experienced, that's life. But furthermore, that I'm deeply grateful to Sonia for not only opening up about them, to really reflect authentically what her life has been like, what her journey has been like, especially in a world that feels less tolerant by the day, and at a time that I personally feel we need more of these conversations, not fewer. At its core, this conversation is about truth, resilience, and about the realities of navigating a world and home society that insists on putting you inside of boxes that you don't fit in and keeping you out of spaces that you were born into. So here's my conversation with Sonia.
Of course, yes. My name is Sonia. I'm from Italy, and I was born and raised in Italy, but I've traveled pretty much all my life. I am a creative, so I do a lot of copywriting and just digital marketing and a little bit of photography. And I have just come back home after almost 8 years abroad. So this is my first time being back in Italy and exploring a little bit what it's like to be back home. I started traveling when I was a baby because my mom is Italian, but my father is from Cameroon. So I lived in Cameroon and in Senegal for a couple of years. And that's where I started to like learn French and like be around other people, also more international people, because I was going to French school. And then when I came back to Europe, it was more like little trips here and there. My mom would always send me to like this study holiday in other people's families to learn the language and just be with them. So by the time I was 18, I was already well traveled. I also did 6 months in Brazil for my studies, and I've been to China as well for a couple of months. And then I finally started to do travels just for me and not for not study related. I went to Amsterdam for a couple of years just to live and work there. And then I went to Australia for 5 years, which is
Yeah.
where I'm coming back from.
Yeah. So then Australia was your longest stint.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Did you plan to stay that long?
No. No, the plan was to do 3 to 6 months in Southeast Asia
Mm,
and then a couple of years in Australia, maybe one in New Zealand, and then come
mm,
back. But I was
mm,
there in the middle of COVID.
mm.
So I had to extend my third year and then my fourth and then my fifth. So it was actually 5.5 years that I was
Wow.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love all the stories where it's like this was the plan and then COVID and then everyone's like, ah, okay, like we get the
Yeah. It
feeling, we
makes
know why.
sense now.
Yeah. Can you kind of walk us through your, I mean, and this is a question I've asked you in your bio also, and you kind of just touched on your family background, but linguistically, like you threw in facts I for sure know about you because we've talked, but I feel like we've already touched on so many. So what has your language background been like your whole life?
Yeah. So Italian is definitely my mother and first
Mm,
language. So I think and speak in Italian most of the time.
mm,
And I would say French should probably be my second language,
mm,
but because I was not raised with my father and all of the French experience that I have were through French school or travels with my mom, I feel like on paper it should be my second language, but in practicality it's not.
yeah.
So I would say English is the language that I'm most comfortable with, especially after spending so much time in Australia. And I also
Mm,
started my business there. There was a lot of personal development. So right now, when I think about my feelings or my thought process, most of the time is in English, which
Mm,
is very interesting.
mm,
But then I also learned Portuguese when I was in Brazil. And there
mm.
was a time when my Portuguese was definitely better than my English and my French.
Wow.
So right now, when I speak French, there is a lot of Portuguese coming through.
Yeah.
Or like maybe I would say one word and it's like, oh, actually, this is Portuguese. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
And then I have the same in Portuguese. It's like, oh, wait, this is French.
Just gonna say, I just recently tried to pick up Spanish again after, many years. And of course, the first thing coming into my head is French. And what's happening now is the prompt is probably in English or in Spanish, but then I'm going through French, which like as an unnecessary intermediate step because I guess that's my default romance language. And so I'm like, like,
I know exactly what you mean. I remember I was at this wedding and everybody was speaking French and I was ready. I had practiced, I had studied. I took extra lesson because I really wanted to speak French.
mm.
And then in the middle of the sentence, I was saying porque and things like that, just,
Yeah.
randomly. And I was like, I know this is wrong. Like, what's happening?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess as someone who grew up with Italian as your base, I wonder, because this is a question I've had on another podcast with somebody else who um, we're both native English speakers, and we talked about how for us there's sometimes this distance with all the different Romance languages. Like we it's not like it's not a good or bad thing. I think it's just like how it works because English is pretty far away. And then it's like we all had to, especially in the States, learn either Spanish or French. And many times people were going between the two. And so it's like, okay, version A is here, version B is there, like Italian is here, and then Portuguese is there. And so, not to say they're the same, but there is a reason they're all classified under Romance languages. How does it work in your head? Can I ask, like, because Italian's your base?
Yeah, I mean, when I study or read in Portuguese and French, if I don't know a word, it's so much easier for me to
Mm,
get it. I feel
mm,
like I can get to that a lot quicker.
mm,
But when I'm studying English or I studied German in school for 5 years, but
mm,
nothing stuck with me.
mm,
But that's just a completely different thought process. So it's just more complicated for me. And I think I can really see that right now that I'm studying Korean. There's
mm.
nothing, there's not even a single connection that I can make. So I
Yeah.
feel like I'm just learning everything from scratch.
Mm,
But I think having Italian as a base language is really cool because I feel like of all the Roman languages, Italian feels like it's a little bit like the center.
mm,
It might not be the most
yeah.
useful language because it's just spoken in Italy,
Mm.
but I feel like knowing the grammar really helps you understand French, Portuguese, and Spanish a lot quicker than if you were coming from a different language.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that with the different European friends I have, the ones who are, we're going to say Italian speaking, because it could be that they had family there, so they weren't exactly born there, but they grew up with the language. They seem to adapt a lot more easily to, and it's like, it's not a rule again, it's like a pattern that I'm just seeing with like my five friends. It's not really like scientific, but I noticed that they adapt to Spanish and French and kind of other Romance languages a little bit more easily, and they can kind of work between them more easily than my French friends or my Spanish speaking friends because, and this is something I've heard and I discussed on the other podcast, it's like, I don't know if it's like too close or I don't know, I don't know what it is, but like there seems to be some tension or some difficulty when people go in these directions. I had a friend, I don't know if I've already made this joke before, possibly. I'll cut it out if I already did. But she went to, oh, I definitely made it before. She went to, she came to France, and she's from Spain. She wanted to improve her French. She didn't know really anything. So she's like, of course, I'm just gonna put myself there, meet some people, hopefully learn the language. And she ended up improving her English because she met other people who were not, it's hard to make local friends and because she didn't have really even a conversational level, it was difficult to even have those opportunities. And so she left France being like, I spent, X number of years and my English is now at like a way higher level than I ever expected. So, I don't know what to say except that I always enjoy hearing what it's like in the brains of other people who come, like you're literally from not only the region but like this specific country, right? And so how does it work for you? I ask questions like, to my husband and to other people all the time. I'm like, what is it like in your brain? Because I will never be able to be in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean because I feel like I have a lot of people that struggle, like English, native English speakers usually.
Mm,
It's just difficult because I feel like it's just a completely different structure.
yeah,
But in Italian, French, Portuguese, Spanish, I feel like it's always the same structure. So
yeah.
it's a lot easier. I feel like when I listen to songs, even Romanian,
Mm,
surprisingly, Romanian
mm-hmm.
is
Yeah,
very, very close to so many
yeah,
languages. Even though I don't think I could understand the conversation, maybe written down, I will be able to understand a couple of things. But I agree also, like what I see when I travel is that a lot of my friends from mostly France or French-speaking friends, they struggle a little bit more when they have to speak another language. They would rather speak French, or
yeah,
if they speak another language, is English.
yeah,
But I feel like Italians, maybe because we kind of know that nobody speaks Italian other than
yeah.
Italian, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like we are more, we don't care. We just go for it.
Mm,
And
hmm.
I've noticed that a lot of Italian don't really care about the accent. They don't care about
Yeah,
how wrong the sentence is or how Italian they sound because they know they can express themselves
yeah.
anyway. I don't know. I feel like there is a feeling of just jumping into the conversation
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes I don't see that. And I'm thinking mostly my English speaking friends that maybe they don't understand a word and they would stop, but I feel like me and I'm guessing other Italian people, even if I don't understand the word, I would go around it many times until I can
Yeah,
get my point across. And I think that's maybe the difference.
yeah,
Does it make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, and this has come up a couple times because the friend that I was just talking about, she was like the queen of doing the circle around the word to get to the point eventually and to continue because it's like seriously, it was incredible to me because I think I always try, but sometimes I might not necessarily stop, but I'll pause for a second and think about like what is the best phrase I can use in place of this. Versus she would just keep talking. Granted, she was a Spanish speaker, right? Not a She didn't speak Italian, but I do think there's something I notice in the rhythm of Italian speakers, Spanish speakers, is like you keep it going. You
Yeah.
just keep the movement happening. Figure it out along the way. Like it doesn't, you're not sure where the train is going, but you're on it, And so I do, I do think it's very, very cool also when you have a bunch of different, and again, this is my perspective as the native English speaker, but like outside of Romance language speaker in the group, I'm watching everyone kind of it's almost like we always think of it like, oh, Romance language, like in what you're describing, it's a similar structure. Like conjugations is like, it's like a concept you're already familiar with. Gendered nouns is a concept you're familiar with. So you don't have to learn from zero those things. But there is something that happens where it's like, is this the word? Is this what it is? Like, do you guys say this? Because there is that difference also. It's like it's familiar, but again, maybe too familiar, or maybe it's like a small variation, or you can't remember which language it was. Was it Spanish? Was it Portuguese? Was it, which one am I going to? And kind of like what you were describing with French and Portuguese, right? It's like you're like, I know it's probably not French, crap. Okay. But I can't think of whatever it is right now. Or Spanish, right? I don't remember what you use but yeah, I feel like people definitely, especially in the US, I feel, take for granted the fact that if you come from a Romance language, you automatically get the other languages. And I don't find that to be true at all. Like you might be able to follow what's happening to a certain degree, right? But it's not like you will naturally just speak five languages,
No,
right?
definitely not.
Yeah.
No, no, no. But I think it's just a different type of standard because I
Yeah.
think people that don't speak English as their first language,
Yeah.
I feel like they're leaning more towards speaking more languages.
Yeah.
It's just as a general rule of thumb. It's not always like this. And, there's plenty of people in Italy that only speak Italian and maybe
Yeah.
English or maybe French.
Yeah.
but it's still different than sometimes like a lot of people that I met in Australia, they only speak English
Yeah.
and it's already a lot.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about, using words or like not finding words. And I feel like, yes, I like the metaphor, like the train going and you just have to keep it going. And
Yeah.
I feel like the issues that I have sometimes where maybe I should stop and think is that there are a lot of like what we call false friends.
Mm,
And so words that I'm using and it's like, wow, this means a completely different thing, but it sounds so similar.
yeah.
And I always remember, like, for
Uh,
example, in Italian, you would say, I'm embarrassed. You say
mm,
imbarazzata, but then in
mm,
Spanish, imbarazzada means pregnant.
yeah.
And so it's like wildly different contexts that
Yeah.
if you just keep it going, you might say some really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But it also
Yeah.
depends who you're talking with.
Yeah. It took me not terribly long, but I wasn't really learning French. It's just I was traveling to France, so I was trying my best, and I learned it's supposed to be conservateur, right? Like the without, but you know the English, it's preservative, but if preservative is condom in French. So I'm going around asking people like if there's condoms inside of the food, right? And so it's
Yeah,
like I learned definitely about the false friends thing, like, very directly. People were like,
yeah.
what? Like, because in their head, they don't know that that's the word in English. They know what the word is in French, and they're like, what are you trying to get at? Then I open my Google Translate, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see why we didn't understand each other. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I remember one time when I was in Brazil, something similar happened that we were going to this bar
Mm.
and I was having a couple of drinks. I was definitely not drunk, but I wanted to make the joke that I was drunk. And I said, I am drunk, but what I actually said, I am a drink. And so everybody was
Oh,
like, what do you mean? You want another drink? It's like, no, I had already enough. It's like, what?
I am a drink.
I am a
I
drink.
am a drink. Yeah.
He couldn't understand what we meant. And it's like, oh, actually, now I remember.
Yeah. And good and bad, but I think it's helpful to have a group where everyone has different languages, and then the person there who is like the bridge between these two people can be like, oh, no, 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 I know what you're saying, and then help in the moment, because it is funny, but again, sometimes it's really not funny. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
No,
could
I
be
said
wrong. Yeah. You're
it will be
embarrassed, you're
good.
pregnant, like
Yeah,
the situation goes in a very different way from that point.
exactly. Yeah, there's so many examples like this that it's like, I wish somebody would have stopped me in time.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think that I don't know if it's audacity or what it is. It's like the risk-takingness of Italian speaking people. Do you feel like that comes from the fact also that there is such a massive Italian diaspora around different parts of the world where, because it's like a theory I'm kind of working on the back of my head. I'm like, what makes things different? And I'm like, immigration makes things different. Okay, migration, right? Not just immigration. But I get what you mean, because I've noticed the same. It's like you just go for it. How do you see a connection between just like the fact that you had, I think a lot of Italian people had to survive, and so they often had to in another language as well.
Yeah, I really see where you're going with this, and I think it makes sense. I think there's so many people around, like so many Italian speaking people around the world that we can never speak Italian because there is
Yeah,
not another country that speaks the language. So
yeah,
I think it's different if I'm thinking, for example, someone from Spain, the whole South America pretty
yeah,
much speaks Spanish, and Central America, and even in the US, you have a lot of that.
yeah,
So I feel like you just start with the mentality of if you want to travel, if you want to be abroad, if you want to do these things, then you have to learn another language. Whereas a Spanish speaker or French speaker, you have so many other countries where you can go and still speak your own language that sometimes it doesn't make you feel like you should even push it more, a little
yeah,
bit like English. Everybody speaks English. So, and I had this conversation with a lot of people in Australia that are like, maybe they want to learn another language, but the moment they say they are English speaker, then everybody wants to practice their English with them.
mm,
Or maybe
hmm,
they're like, oh, don't judge my English, I'm so sorry. And so there's like never this openness that you have when nobody speaks English and you just use English as like a communication language, which is, I think, for me, for how I was raised, that's how I think of English.
Yeah. But let's kind of jump into a topic that I know you and I have discussed from our own personal perspectives. If you're listening to this and you don't see our faces, well, at this point, hopefully you realize I am Asian and Asian looking. And Sonia, I'll let you kind of present yourself, but yeah, we're gonna move into this other kind of harder topic, I think, about what it means to not only speak multiple languages, but represent multiple cultures inside of predominantly, I'm gonna say Western, it's not my favorite word, but like, in the Western world, what this means.
Yeah. Yeah, so my mom is Italian white and my father is from Cameroon, so I'm actually mixed. And I don't know if there is another word for it. I usually say Italian, and then if people ask me more, I would say Black Italian, but mixed is usually what I go
Mm,
with.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of people that look like me in Italy or like
Mm,
I mean, in Europe, yes, but not with my background. So it's
mm,
always confusing to people.
right. And something that we've kind of touched on privately is the fact that much of the world associates Italy, I mean France too, but we're going to focus on you, you know, on Italian identity being a white Italian identity, and as if there was a pure Italian, white Italian identity, which that word always makes me really cringe. Um, can I first ask you how that makes you feel as someone who was born and raised in the country?
Yeah, it's not a good feeling because I feel like a lot of people told me that, and they also make me question like how really Italian I am. Because yes, on paper I am only 50% Italian. So I sometimes when I was younger and all of these things used to get to me
Mm,
a lot easier,
mm,
I would feel like maybe they are right. Because who am I to say that, I am pure Italian?
mm,
And then when people would speak a little bit of Italian because they were taking classes or things like that, I would feel like, well, I am more Italian than that. But
yeah.
people would say, oh, he's Italian because they can speak Italian. But then they wouldn't say to me.
Mm,
I always feel like I am the mixed person that I was born in Italy, while other people, even if they can say two sentences in broken Italian, but they maybe had a cousin that
mm,
was born in Italy, then they are Italian. And I never understood how come, like all of my school or my
yeah.
passport, my culture, my even my humor, everything is Italian. And
Mm,
that's the culture that I can connect to. But there's always someone that has a grandparent that was born in Italy or went to Italy for 3 months, and for some reason they're more Italian than me.
yeah, this question of what does it mean to be X is something that is not easily answered, I think, by most of the world. I think many people don't realize how many countries, we're going to just say, don't agree on the definition of what it means to be X. X can be whatever, right? And I think this is what I personally want to do with this podcast is not only talk about language, which is very important, but a huge part of language is also communication with others. It's also how you understand someone's background and also someone's identity. And so then when your identity is it's already a complex topic, but when you're being told that your identity is not this because you don't match whatever definition somebody has of whatever X is, right? I know this from my own version of it, but it's to kind of say it doesn't get better like ever. I feel like when you don't match the stereotype of whatever it is, you will always have to deal with this in your daily life or in your regular existence. And you bring up a great point, by the way, that in the US, there are many people who are, let's say they came in like the 1800s, like their family, right? They're the wave of people who immigrated, right? Um, I I understand that technically, right, because their like great grandmother, grandfather came and they kept certain traditions alive. Is it like, is it fair to call you not Italian, even though you were born and raised, and not like, not for nothing. It's not like you just like ended up in a country. Like you literally have a parent who's 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 Italian, right? But then for you, people say, "Oh, you're only 50%," versus for these people who maybe at this point they've already married, had kids with other people, right? And so the Italian portion of it is so I just don't like to talk about it like this, but it's so diluted in terms of genetic background and ancestry. And yet when they go to Italy and they say, "Oh, I had a grandparent or a great grandparent," everyone's like, "Oh, your family." And it's like, what? Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And I think it's just maybe they fit a lot better with what people had in mind of what
Mm,
Italian people look like,
yeah.
especially in the US. And I feel like there's also this very big like people in Italy idealize the US a lot. I
Mm,
mean, I feel like everyone does, but I feel like in Italy especially. So when you're like Italian and American, that's even better. It's
yeah.
like you can have even more. But for me, I don't look Italian, and I get told I'm from Brazil or I'm from Africa, so it's just
Mm,
so far away from Italy that
mm,
I think people would rather be like, oh yeah, a lot of people told me, oh yeah, she's African, but she was born in Italy.
yeah.
And I really have nothing African besides my skin color and my hair.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
don't have traditions, I don't have culture, I don't even have the language. Like I can speak French, but I cannot speak, all of the
Yeah.
the dialects of all the
Yeah.
different countries. So
Yeah.
it's just, I think people don't really understand how much more complicated it is. And they just look, okay, you look like this. So yeah, you might have some Italian, but not really.
Yeah. Which again, we recall the fact that it's your mother is white Italian,
Yeah.
correct? Your father is from Cameroon, but you also didn't grow up with him, so it's like or sorry if that's like wrong, if I'm misremembering.
No,
This
no,
is
no,
my,
it's
yeah.
good.
And so it's not again, it's like not even like you're because we do have a lot of mixed kids who do share 50-50, and I do think that's a really beautiful thing, and they're like, we don't care because we're just going to celebrate both equally, right? But I also feel like the greater challenge, if I can speak directly on this, is that it's really just your physical features that indicate to people that you don't match the mold, because it's not like you're only speaking in a different language. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like you're dressing a certain way. Or like sometimes there's more of a case to be made. I feel like if someone didn't grow up in the country, but technically this is part of their ancestry, there's all these different variations, but there is literally nothing in terms of what we're talking about in your backstory, except the fact that your skin is darker than what people would match or think, right? Matches their definition. Your hair is different. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this is according to, I suppose, whatever jury or board, rules on this, because who really decides, right? Society decides, but it's as if you see it so much. And I can't imagine what it would be like to live through that, because the US, while not exempt from this, is a different place for many reasons. But I at least got to I wrestle with things, but for me it's like no one is truly like native here, so no one gets to use that. And so even though we have a certain extreme political party who's doing a lot of damage right now and blah 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 blah, I'm just gonna go past all that, and all the people who do support that type of thinking, uh, I would say the vast majority of people, no matter how they voted politically, don't really believe in like this type of very Eurocentric, very white centric feeling of what it means to be American. And I think this kind of, I hope whoever's listening to this, I hope people understand that there's a challenge that I see in Europe that doesn't exist in North America for people. I'm going to say people of color. I understand that every country goes through its own challenges, and for sure, the US has a lot of work to do. But this is what I feel, and I also live in a different way when I'm in France. I really want to give proper weight to what you have had to go through your entire life because I do feel like you were presented with challenges that we weren't, you know? At least not in recent generations. Again, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist or discrimination doesn't exist. It's just to call yourself whatever identity or national identity. I am allowed, for instance, to hyphenate and feel like totally okay with that. And also feel like there's white Americans, Black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic, Latino American, like we get to do all these things. You don't get to, from my perspective, be like, I am just as Italian as you because you have people telling you you're from a literal different continent and happened to be born there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that's very fair because I had the similar feeling when I was in Brazil, and there were a lot of different colors, but everybody was Brazil. There's also
Yeah.
like a Japanese community in Brazil,
Yeah.
and they're still Brazilian, even though they have feature and all of these
Yeah.
things, but they are Brazilian. And I
Yeah.
feel like Italy doesn't really have that. And I was always comparing to other countries in Europe, and France was one of them where there is a lot of people of color that are also French, and a lot of actors and a lot of
Yeah.
things like that. And even though, yes, they might be coming from Africa or from other continents, but they are still French. And then
Yeah.
I was thinking in other countries like the Netherlands, where I lived for 2 years, nobody has ever questioned where I was from because they're so
Mm,
used to that. So you
mm,
see a black girl and she's Dutch and you believe her because that's happening and that's a possibility.
yeah.
And so there's so many other countries that are like that, but I feel like Italy is just not not like that. And there's a lot of, I think the population is very old, so the mentality also stays a little bit older and it's not as, I don't feel like it's going as fast as in other countries maybe.
Mm,
But when
mm-hmm.
I say Black Italian, it doesn't sound as good as Black American. It's
Mm,
as if it sounds a little bit empty,
oh,
as if it doesn't mean anything.
oh, yeah. I mean, I I don't know if you could describe for us maybe how it was when you were growing up. Did you see other people like you? Did you feel like you were the only one?
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, like in my school, I was always the black kid, or if there was another
Mm,
black kid, it was always like, let's put the black kids together. Are you
mm,
guys from the same country? Or it was always like, wow, you really look alike. And it's like, we have nothing in common, nothing.
yeah.
But just because we're both darker than you, then you kind of cannot see the difference. But yeah, I'm just thinking all of my primary school or middle school, high school, there were not really a lot of people like me, and I could definitely count them on my fingers for
Mm,
across all the schools.
hmm. Yeah. I think another thing that people assume is that this type of lack of diversity comes if you are living in a very remote area or if you are not in a major city, because I suppose some people, and again, it's like it depends on your own home country, I think, to give you this kind of framework. It's definitely not that way like across the board, but I think I noticed there's like a trend of being like, oh, well, of course, for instance, like what you're describing for France, outside of Paris, I'm just really asking myself, like, would people really, really accept Black people as truly French? Or is this me being in the country? While I can't speak for everyone, I can definitely say that it's not uncommon for me to hear, oh, yes, they're French, but, French, but is always, or French with whatever origins, background, roots, which no one says for anyone who's white. It's like, that's interesting, but white French, meaning if you were white Italian and then you moved to France, you probably would get the French but Italian thing. So it's kind of like there's like this double layering
Yeah.
happening in France. Yeah, it was really, really fun to deal with. Um, so when I'm presented to other people, for instance, even in my in-laws side of things, everyone will be like, oh, she's American, but, or she's American, but Asian, right? American, but with, Chinese roots
Mm.
or whatever roots. And it's pissing off my husband a lot because he's like, "Why are you always doing this? Like, why are you like it's really unfair because it's only happening to people of color, right? Like, why is it not happening on both sides? It's not a normal thing. Yet the word that the French people use is it's so normal because it is normal to them to other everyone else. Like, so I guess I get what you mean by normal, but you know what I mean? It's like so yeah, anyways, I feel like in France, I see that there's multiple levels of it, but inside of a major city like Paris, which is really the only place I can think of where it's a little bit better in this regard, people really are living together in a different way. I don't know if Italy, it's like a countryside thing. Do you know what I mean? How would you see this?
Well, I think when I was a kid, it was also different because I couldn't see all of this.
Mm,
Like I could see that something was off, but I couldn't put it into words. So it's different. But I've done all of my primary school and a little, yeah, primary school, I would say in Milan, which is a big
mm,
city.
hmm
And I think now that I came back after so many years and I was in the city center, everybody was speaking English. Everybody was like very international. There's a lot of international students. And I even ordered a coffee and the guy started talking to me in English because all of the people
mm,
before me were students. So
mm,
if it was like this, and if it was like this in the past, I don't think I would have noticed that because I'm just thinking that's very international. I love it.
mm, hmm
But in the past, people would be speaking Italian to everybody and then asking me if I also spoke Italian. And it's like, why don't you assume that I do? And then I will tell you if I don't.
Yeah,
Or like, why don't you ask to the other people? Because they could be from Spain, they could be from France, they could be from wherever. And I think another factor is that because I was always with my mom and my mom is white,
mm,
there was always that feeling of like, what is happening right here?
mm,
And she told me stories, and like, I'm sure she didn't tell me all the stories, but like, how people would be like, oh, where is your daughter from? And it's like, what? She is my
me.
daughter,
Yeah,
And it's like, yes, of course she's your daughter, but where is she from? Is she from Brazil? And it's like, why they cannot accept that, this is my daughter, and everybody asking me, are you adopted? Or like, all of this conversation that is like, even in Milan, you know,
yeah.
people were having this conversation. And yes, okay, that was like almost 30 years ago, but still,
Still, yeah.
yeah. So I think now that I am in a smaller city, I'm just prepared for that. But
Mm,
people just think that I'm a tourist.
mm,
So like when I go to like these beautiful places, people just speak to me in English.
yeah,
And sometimes I also reply in English because it's like that there's no time to explain you my backstory. I just really need to buy an ice cream and that's it.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's definitely getting better and I can see the change in the future generations. But usually the people that say that it's changing and it's so much better are not the people that are living the
yeah,
situation. It's more the people from the outside
yeah,
that are thinking about it because it's still very slow, very, very
yeah.
slow.
What I notice in France, don't know if it's the same in Italy, is that it's the people of color slash people who have certain, we're just gonna call it like non-European roots inside of their family histories who seem to be the ones leading the movement towards more equality on the subject, at least in social discourse, meaning it's not the people who get to just kick back, call everything normal, and then be like, oh, everything has changed. Oh, we're so cosmopolitan now. Like, it's like I realized that there was a trend because I was looking up studies, right? And I looked them up in French because of course they're written by French professors and such. I'm like, okay, very interesting that all of these last names seem to be North African and like the people who go into this field and of course we see it in the US also. It's rare to see someone who matches the stereotype be bothered or have the interest, not to say everyone needs to go into academic research, but they're not they're not the ones putting in the work, writing books, leading support groups or resource groups or um associations, or they're not the ones doing this type of work. They're the ones who, I mean, if you're my husband, you're reading about it because I bought him a book to read about it, right? But it's not like, in my perspective, they're not doing much, right? Meaning they might go protest, for sure in France, like it's a lot of protesting for many causes, for many things. And so if there's like BLM happened in the States, there was of course a movement, right, that happened in France as well. So people go and protest. But it's like, to me, I'm like, protesting is one piece of it, sure. But you also have to be in dialogue with other people. You have to understand because it's not your experience of it. So if I look around and good job, you attended these protests, but if your friend group is still all, not predominantly all white French, to me, that indicates that you're not actually really, really like trying to understand the perspectives of other people. It's performative, right? So I don't know how it's played out in Italy.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's really tricky because I feel like a lot of people just get into this topic when they meet someone that is not like them.
Mm,
And it's like I'm glad that, I can be that person for you. I'm glad that maybe you can
yeah.
learn something, but at the same time, why do I have to be the one educating you? Like
Mm,
we both have access to Google and
yes.
Wikipedia and things like that, but I
Yeah.
have to explain you why that comment was racist, why that
Yeah.
thing made me uncomfortable. And then
Yeah.
people will be like, oh, but it doesn't matter. I wouldn't feel it like this if it was me.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're not like me.
Yeah.
And it's like I always appreciate people that are doing all of these things like the protests and things like that. But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing in your day-to-day life that is actually changing? Because, you can go to a protest and tell people you've been there and that you care about it, but then nothing happens. Or like if you see something happening in the street, you don't say anything. And so it's always interesting to me that it's like I I feel like I'm tired of being the
Mm,
educator,
mm,
like not everybody deserves a full explanation on why this is right, why this is wrong, why this made me uncomfortable. A lot of people can come to this conclusion by themselves,
yeah.
and it's just missing like that, you know, awareness piece, I guess. Like just
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper instead of asking your black friend or your Asian
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah. The weight of being like the representative of whatever, which sometimes, sure, like for instance, for me, I'll just again use myself as an example. If you want to know how states are organized in the US, like why there are 50 of them and why our education is based on counties, let me explain to you what a county is because you don't have this system. Totally fine, right? Like I'm happy to talk about that because for me, it makes sense. Like, how would you understand this? But I get questions on like, okay, in China, blah, 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 And I'm like, I have no idea how the education system works. Oh, I do know, but like I don't know on that level because I was not educated there, right? And also I wasn't born there. And also like, you know what I mean? My
Yeah,
family fled the country for a reason. So it's not exactly like a happy topic either. Because like if
yeah.
you ask me like why I was born in the US, I have to go into like the revolution and everything, which is like not a great time, And
Mm.
I feel like I'm like confused sometimes because I have definitely been in that situation where it's like just me and like 20 white French people looking at me to give responses on things as if I'm like some delegate for like the UN. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, like I'm trying to explain to you why you should probably ask someone else. But like all you see is this, like my face, and you assume, oh my God, this just someone in um my husband's family side. It's not directly related to him, but like she was shocked that I don't know how to read or write or speak Korean, even though I speak Mandarin. Because
How is that related though?
yep. Because in Asia we're all one and we so and she was just it was literal like shock and surprise and all like but there's no connection between them. And I guess somebody could be like, oh, well, it makes sense because in, there's she's French, so French, Spanish, like, romance languages. I'm like, yes, but no, like you can't in this day and age, and this is not like an old person. This is someone in at that time she was in her 30s, right? So like it's you what? What are we talking about here? And like she's educated, like highly educated actually. So like what's happening?
Oh my God. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's also like completely different alphabets,
Yeah.
completely different countries. Like
Yeah.
Italian and Spanish, it's the same letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I know what you mean. I had people asking me if I speak Afrikaans, and it's like, what even is Afrikaans? Like, you mean
Yeah.
Afrikaans?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not where my father is from. But like, yeah, or do you speak any African language? Like, what do you think an African language is?
Yeah. I think something else is I'll hear a lot of US people say like, "Oh, I didn't have that experience when I met so and so in whatever European country, just name whichever one." And I'm like, "Okay, well, can I ask you like did you have that conversation in English?" Meaning like do you know that in order to be educated in English or to be able to hold a conversation like that in English, you're probably talking to people who have either traveled or had access to that, in terms of family, either priority or wealth, depends on the history. But it's not like it's not like that's representative of the entire country, I'm like,
Exactly.
I know that you talk to like many people, but they all were having this conversation in English and they all work a certain type of job, like in business or, they have a global vision of things. Like, yeah, of course they would be different. Like, what?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people they forget that, not everybody is supposed to speak
Yeah.
your language to make you comfortable or to make you part of the conversation. It's not like we study English like we in Italy we study just because everybody speaks
Yeah.
English, but I think if it wasn't that vast, I don't think people in Europe would do that because
Yeah.
other languages would be the priority.
Yeah.
So a lot of people often forget that, and it's like, yes, but if you speak with someone like that, it means that they are, as you said, like well-traveled and maybe they had a really good education, good enough that they can have
Hmm.
this hard conversation with you in a
Yeah.
language that is not their own.
Exactly.
But it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mention all the time that my husband accidentally gets looped into this stereotype of English equals wealth and education
Mm,
because it's like the total opposite for him. He's like, socioeconomically, we are on the other side of the spectrum. But he decided when, he was younger to go to London to try to work and make some money because it was just like it was not like he was like sent to London. It was not this type of situation. He just literally there was a family friend who had like a son randomly living there. He lived in like that guy's apartment and then he was working in like the kitchens of like, hotels and restaurants. It's not like a glamorous like study abroad exchange thing. So when people are like, "Oh, why is your English like so fluent, so good, right? So fluid, right?" And he's like, "Oh, it's because I went to London." I'm like, "You need to stop saying it like that because everyone is automatically like, oh, so Michelle's with this really, really like bougie, really classy. He's classy, but like I'm like you realize that from the external perspective, it does kind of paint a different picture. I'm like, what you need to say is the truth, which is you barely made enough money to survive. You couldn't even afford cheese. When you came home, your mother saw that you had like, he was like emaciated apparently, like just like completely anorexic and, because he couldn't really feed himself, right? So he was working a ton. And so he never went back also for that reason, because his mother was like, why would you go to a country where you starve yourself, because cost of
yeah,
living is so
exactly.
high. So yeah, but it's kind of funny.
It is funny, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like a lot of people like they forget because I think I have a similar experience when I go to Cameroon or I go to
Mm,
Senegal, and especially because my mom, she works a lot in different African countries, so I visit her across Africa,
mm,
and she's always struggling with the fact that they see her, she's white, so she
yeah,
must equal money.
yeah,
And it's very different,
yeah,
it's not a lot of people still think, that means wealth in the sense
yeah,
of many cars and things like
Mhm.
that. And every time she's like, I'm in Africa, I'm in this country, everyone is always assuming that you're helping, you're helping
Mhm.
building a school, you're
Yep.
helping building a hospital, you're helping. And it's, yeah, always this idea that, oh, those poor people cannot do it
Yeah.
without them. And she hates that because
Mm.
that's not the job that she's doing. And the goal is really to work with the people right there. It's the same reason why I work with Australian companies. I'm not helping them build anything.
Yeah.
I'm just working with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like it's interesting how where you're from, the color of your skin and all these
Mm.
things, they really change the perspective of what people have of like the type of job that you do or the reason why you work in a certain country or you travel to a certain country. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask what she does more specifically as her work?
Yeah, she's a project manager
Mm.
and a country representative.
Hmm.
So she is leading projects that are led sometimes by some association that might be from Europe, but most of the time they're also locals.
Yeah.
So she's leading the team of people in the country, and
Yeah.
they're doing different projects in agriculture because that's her field.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess people could say that she's helping, but I feel like every
Not in the same
job,
way. Yeah.
yeah, it's like every job is helping.
Yeah. There was there's a two-part episode that I released with a couple, a white American couple who went to Vietnam, who basically, whenever they told their, I guess, friends and family or just, other people that they were going to Vietnam, they always assumed that they were there to like go build a school, like there to teach English, there to, and they were like, no, we were there because they had a family member who was living there and they were trying to, it was like COVID and, it was like,
Yeah.
no, like just because we're white, no. you know
Yeah, there's always this assumption that,
yeah,
you have to help those
yeah,
people.
yeah,
And yeah, you can also enjoy other countries and travel the same way other people do, Yeah.
yeah. I'm going to move us to a topic that is definitely related. I wanted to sort of give our listeners a chance to understand the landscape of what we're working with,
Mhm.
right? Because again, very, very specific to a certain part of the world, but also we look at how language and culture intersect with identity to then understand the complicated matrix of how this conversation is going. So okay, I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you start out and talk about this because I definitely have my own stories. I just don't want it to be like only about me. Um, when you don't fit the stereotype look, there is a certain feeling that I know to be true in my own experiences traveling around the world. It doesn't matter where I am, right? Like whenever you're like something else and you're female and you wear a little bit of makeup, or like it doesn't even matter if you wear makeup, to be honest, but there's a certain allure that might come from the fact that the word is exotic, that is used quite frequently. Can you talk about your personal experiences on this subject?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of that pretty much everywhere I go, except when I was in Brazil and the Netherlands, that was the only country where I felt like a lot of people could look like me and I could just, pass by.
Yeah,
But in all the other countries, I really get the exotic feeling. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's very difficult feeling to trust because sometimes people are really nice to you and you're wondering, why
mm,
are you nice to me? Is it because I look this way and you've never seen someone this way? Maybe our conversation are really good because our conversation are really good and there's nothing, but I'm always double guessing and I'm always thinking, okay, I am the only black person in the room. Is this something that has to do with the conversation that we're having or not?
yeah,
But I think especially when traveling, like I really try to blend in a little bit more because sometimes it makes me feel unsafe, even though,
mm,
you know, I don't know, like it doesn't necessarily have to be, but it's the feeling that I get. And especially in Italy, it's just like just crazy. If I'm not in a big city and I'm in a small village, it's always like, yeah, people don't they don't expect me to be Italian. So they're always very curious and like trying to dig in. It's like, oh, but where are you from? But what are you really from? But where is your
Hmm.
family from? And we have to go back generations before we can have a conversation. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever ask it back? Like, are you
Yes.
ever like, why don't you tell me first where you're from and where your family's from, since you're so curious about, my background?
Yeah, I sometimes do that. It's more like, oh yeah, I'm from here and here. And what about you? And usually it's like, oh, I was born here. And it's like, oh, that's so easy. And so I always say, oh yeah, I was born here too.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when they're like trying to ask me the question, but I can see that they don't want to say. So they're like, but where are you originally from? What's your ethnicity? And they're like very shy, and I can tell they want to ask me, why are you black and why do you speak
Yeah.
Italian? And so I'm always, not always, it depends on the person, but if I really feel like I will never meet this person again, just wasting my time. I
Hmm.
would just make up a random story of how my father is from Russia and my mom is from like, I don't know, Latvia,
Oh
and
my
they just met. And it's like, oh, but where is your ethnicity from? Oh, that's what you mean. Yes, because we were actually born and raised
God.
in, I don't know, Ukraine. That's why.
Yeah.
And so I always make it even more
Oh my God.
complicated until they're like, okay, yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I love that. I love that because I'm sorry. It's like I probably there's probably some like ethical thing that I'm crossing by liking this type of situation, but it's one that I'm so familiar with also because I feel like you just serve back what you're given in a way.
Yeah,
And of course, it's not like if you're not seeing these people again, does it actually like really, really mislead? Like I don't know. To me, I feel like the grounds for the question are already problematic. And so when you're just mirroring the behavior, not only do I see that this is kind of warranted in to some degree. I mean, especially if you're like, oh my God, it's like the fifth time today. Like seriously, like what is what is up with everyone today? Uh, but I've also done it, like for sure. I've given, fake names. And it also sometimes it's for security
yeah,
because you're in some part of the world where you don't want everyone to know so much about you because clearly there's like a target on you and you're just being prudent by not sharing all this.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of instances where, I think especially traveling as a woman, I'm always going to meet my husband, and my husband is always from like the US or from
Yeah.
Norway or like from something that it will definitely sound white in a way.
Yeah.
But I feel like, when people get a little bit lost into these things, like I had people being upset, like, why don't you want to tell me? Why
Mm,
is it that negative? And it's like, it's not that I don't want to tell you. It's like I get asked these questions so often that sometimes I'm just wondering, like, does it really matter? And like I reflected on that so many times, and like people really dig in and they try to ask you all of these questions. And at the end, when they get the answer, sometimes it's just the satisfaction of knowing that they were right, that I was
yeah.
not Italian. Like, oh, I knew you were not Italian. I knew
Uh,
you were not from here.
yeah.
And then like they go on and like their day can continue. And for me, it's more like now I'm thinking about this conversation for longer, because what if he's right? What if, I'm not really Italian, but also why you're not having this conversation with other people? And so I've come to realize that these kind of questions are a form, maybe very subtle, but still a form of microaggression. And some people just get asked this question more often. And
Yeah.
a friend of mine actually described it as like mosquito bites. That is like one mosquito bite is
Mm,
nothing, and you can just scratch it off and it's gonna go away on its own. But some people just get more and more and more mosquito bites to the point that maybe you have one last mosquito bite and you go crazy.
mm,
And yes, from the outside it's just a mosquito bite, but how many other bites did you have before? And so that's how I'm looking at it from this angle, and it really helps me understand, okay, this is maybe not making me uncomfortable, but I can still take a step back and like, protect myself by telling that my father is from Russia and it's not gonna hurt anyone.
yeah. That is such a good image, by the way, because many times what you'll hear, and sometimes I'll hear people say this like on my behalf. Like I like dispatch my husband to go deal with all this stuff. I'm like, go, 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 go,
Yes.
go, like talk to your people. But sometimes I'll hear him say things, or I'll hear people say things like, oh, don't you know, like the cognitive load or like the mental load of dealing with this? And I'm like, well, when you say it like that, while it is true, it feels like it's a psychological problem, and it feels like, oh, other people should just feel sorry because my life is hard. And, it actually doesn't get to the root of it. So I like that you are using mosquito bites. It's perfect, actually. Well, one mosquito bite for sure bothers me because I have that type, like blood type that attracts mosquitoes a lot, and so they get really, really big. But even if I didn't, yeah, after 100 mosquito bites, it doesn't matter who you are. You're gonna be like, this is annoying. Like
Yeah,
it's your whole body, and there's like no more space left. Like, really, where will you, where else are you gonna bite? Oh, you're still
yeah.
gonna bite. You're gonna bite on top of the other bites. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a pretty powerful analogy, which is why I always use it when I have to explain why I don't want to talk about it or I'm tired. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be in the same day, it
Yeah,
can be a lifetime of the same questions, and that's still gonna be enough. Like,
yeah,
why do we always have to talk about this? We can just skip to the next thing and like have a normal conversation, and then it will naturally come into the conversation because of course it's going to influence my background, and of course if
yeah,
we talk about family it's going to come up,
yeah,
but it's much more natural and organic to have it in a conversation like this instead of asking it right away because you're curious and you cannot wait to get to
yeah,
know me.
yeah. The defense I've heard in France, which again I don't consider it really a valid defense. I have heard often that, oh, we're asking just because we're really interested, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
interest comes from many different sources. If you're interested because you believe that like something that you would never do to another person who looks like um, you would never cross that boundary simply because you're like, oh, it's rude to pry so much, to ask so much. The argument is always, well, we're interested and because we want to know more, because sometimes, oh, we think you're really pretty, or we think that it's so interesting. You must be so interesting. And I'm like, don't sugarcoat it inside of some sort of like
Right.
complimentary, yeah, like situation. I'm too experienced and smart, honestly, to like see what's going on here, right? And it's like if you want to be asking someone else this question, because they're always like, oh no, but these are innocent questions, like what's your background, like where are you from, whatever. I'm like, you want to be asking these specific questions. Someone else tells you I'm from, whatever validated country, or they give a validated answer and it matches how you see them looking on the outside, because really that's an interpretation, right? That's specific to the person. You don't go further because you're like, oh, it's not necessary, it's rude, it's whatever. But for me, for other people, for you, like what you have to experience, it's like constant, right? It's like it
Mhm.
literally doesn't stop until they're satisfied to whatever degree. And I just find the exhaustion that comes from doing this is actually it's not about talking about these problems, because I do think it can be really a good thing to have conversations like this sometimes if it's in good faith and, you really feel like you're connecting well with the person. But when it is like, it feels like targeted, it feels like an interrogation to me. It's not even just like, it's not just mosquito bites, it's not just like attacks. It's just like, why is it not stopping? Because I have told you that it is enough, and I don't see why I have to keep taking it just because I have to fill the gap inside of your brain. Like whatever is not working, it's on me right now to provide all the information to you. And it's not on you to like the education you're talking about. It's like you have the same access to things. Why why is it my
Yeah.
problem now?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just that feeling of like, once they get the answer that they want, it's not even important anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, now they can move on with the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it always seems like a compliment, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you are so pretty. This is why I want to know. And this is something that I really had lots of conversation with my mom, but also with other people that I don't think they can really understand. And like when every time I am in Cameroon or in Senegal, but mostly, yeah, Cameroon is where I go usually, but people watch me all the time. And I
Mm.
feel like even then, I'm like the exotic little thing
Mm.
because I'm not white, I'm not black, what am I? So I
Mm.
know that I stand out because of that. And I really hate that feeling. I really hate the feeling of being watched. And I feel like when it comes from black people, I feel even worse because it's like you should protect me, like when
Yeah.
I'm in Europe, it's like I
Yeah.
protect myself from the white, let's call it white gaze, but I don't know what's the word. But then in when I'm in Cameroon, it's the opposite, and I kind of find more shelter in like white people because maybe they're more, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe they understand. So it's like I'm never enough in each place. But then when I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this because I feel like people are watching me. Oh, but they're watching you because you're pretty. And it's like, no, they're
Oh,
watching me because they know there's something going on and they want to know.
yeah.
And I just think, we shouldn't call it like, should I be happy that everybody is
Yeah.
watching me? Like, should I be happy that all of these men are like trying to take
Yeah.
pictures of me? Because
Yeah.
that's a different conversation. And I think, a lot of, especially on women, we put a lot of this pressure that is like, oh, he's looking at you because you're pretty. Shouldn't we stop the boy, the man,
Mm.
from looking at you just because you're
Mm.
pretty, even if you're pretty and even if
Yeah.
he's looking at you because of that?
Mm-hmm.
Why should we feel like, oh yeah, I should let this keep I should this be uncomfortable for me
Yeah.
because he has nice intention, like he thinks I'm beautiful, so he's
Yeah.
allowed to make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it happens so much when I travel, like very so often that is like, I don't like it. I really
Mm.
don't like it.
Yeah. And beautiful doesn't mean safe, right? Like
Yeah.
beautiful doesn't mean protected. And also, two things can be true, which was my first response back to the first time someone in France told me this. I was like, so you don't think it's both things? Like, you don't think it can be more than one reason? Why are we only giving, like, why are you trying to pin it on this, what seems to be to you an objective evaluation, which it already isn't because it's about beauty, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, do you not think that in the interpretation of beautiful or exotic could also be like ulterior motives, right? Of
Yeah.
whatever sort. And that's confusing to me that people can't hold that. It's like, no, it can't be this. Reject your interpretation. Must be that. Like, it's like
Mm.
they come together like many
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just say to make you feel better,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, if I were to focus on the surface level, yes, of course, thank you if you think that. But, even if I am in love with someone and this person
Yeah.
stares at me 24/7, that will also make me uncomfortable. So it's really not about that. And I feel like, my default question is always looking around. Is like, how many other people look like me?
Mm.
Not a lot. So maybe it's not really because of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to be more aware of what's happening.
Yeah. And I think we also live in a time, well, I guess humans have probably always been like this, where it's like, oh, so great to have, for instance, in dating and romance, like big US people love like this idea of like European summer and going to find,
Yeah.
your Italian boyfriend or your whatever, right? Okay, just be careful if you're a woman, especially, and also a woman of color, because interest, again, can be shown in many ways. And sure, it could be real. Like, I believe what I have with my husband is real. I don't believe it's like a fetish, for instance. But I do know that this exists. And why do I know that? Is because I had, well, not had to, but I went on many dates with people who showed me that it's very real. And I had to get myself out of certain situations at a time where, I mean, it wasn't, it didn't get to the point where it was extremely dangerous because of the fact that I was aware and informed already. Maybe if it was like years ago, I would be a little bit more naive, right? Because I think I did have to go through like a stalking incident and a couple of other things that like really showed me like both in the US and also in Europe, like I'm like, it's really like just everywhere, you know? It's like,
Mm.
and it can happen, for instance, I'm an Asian woman, but it can happen in Asia also. Like when women are in that marginalized position, sure, in certain societies, it's on the basis of color or race. It's also possible just because you match whatever the man is looking for.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really ugly
Yeah.
thing that's happening. And sometimes I really feel like people, especially on dates and with all of this like hookup culture, I feel like a lot of people, they just want to collect,
Yeah.
all of these colors of women
Yeah.
or a boyfriend,
Yes.
and it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I've never been with a black woman before, I've never been with an Asian person before.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, is this the only reason why we're
Yeah.
talking? Because, I don't really like it.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, when I was younger, it just felt like, oh, that's amazing. It just, there's such a way for people to mask it as a compliment that kind of made me feel special until
Mm-hmm.
I understood what they really meant. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very uncomfortable. But I don't know why people like I don't understand. I would never be able to be in that position, to wanting to be with someone from a certain ethnicity just because, like, as if I had some kind of Pokédex going on that I have to fill
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's for me, what I've had the privilege of living in France with my husband back when, I mean, and still now. Um, it's weird because I feel like so we have stories where people have asked him about me as if like I'm not right there, as if I don't speak the language and as if I don't literally understand every single word of what's happening. So this whole like, oh, where's she from? Oh, she's beautiful. She's so interesting, like kind of like where did you find her? Like where did you acquire
Yeah.
this rare specimen? And it's doubly annoying because I feel it from the Asian female perspective, but then I also feel it from the he's not my owner, so what is happening here, perspective.
Mm.
And he's learned obviously how to really push back against that and, like be that wall for me when I need him to be. But it's so like I don't make this stuff up, like I don't have to. I have enough things going on. I want to like make up these stories, but like you're just like sitting there minding your own business and like this can happen. So like even if it doesn't happen in front of me, like people might pull him aside. It's like
Mm.
what is going on here truly? And I don't, for a long time I was like, is it just like the city I live in? Because maybe it's that, right? And then I started traveling, right? Because it was at a time where I needed to collect data, right? And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to other cities and go alone to kind of figure out if it's me or what's me, what's the country, and what's the culture, etc. And I was like, oh no, it's happening everywhere. Nope, it's it's everyone, it's everywhere, it's anytime, and I'm just like minding my own business. What's crazy is that you start to form your own understanding of how those little micro shifts specific to a region or country and culture start to play out. So if I go more east, like they start to think I'm whatever. And why is that? Oh, I realize other Asian people, granted, not from any of the countries my family is from, but I guess we look the same. So they start to group me with them, And so you start to learn more, weirdly enough, about the type that they've classified you as, like your category, and how the regional migrations have happened because of how
Yeah.
you're treated once you start to move around yourself. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, I know what you mean because I've also tried to see what was happening. And I think it also depends on the person that you're with because, I feel like your husband and I, sorry, your husband,
no worries. I'm cool.
you and your husband, because I was already thinking about the next sentence. Anyway, you and your husband, you probably have worked together,
Yeah,
to really have this conversation and
yeah,
have this how to deal with this conversation with other people and like
yeah,
really what to say, what not to
yeah,
say. And sometimes I am with people that have not done that work or like
Mm,
they don't know where to start. And so they kind of play along thinking that that's okay.
yeah.
And I'm always wondering, don't you think this is, very weird? And I can never flip it back on the other side, I can never say, how would you feel? Because there's nothing that I can make it sound similar. When I
Mm,
say, oh, people keep asking me where I'm from, how would you feel? And it was like, oh, well, I would love to share where I'm from. I'm like, yes, but you're missing the nuance of that.
yeah.
So I remember when I was dating this guy and he posted a photo on social media of like so many black girls, very beautiful, and it was like, this is what heaven looks like. And it's like, that's
Mm,
that's why we're dating, just
mm,
because that's like the idea of what you have of me. And a lot of people don't realize it. It's just like, oh, it's a preference.
mm.
No, not really.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something I want to kind of put in here before we move on to, because I want to ask you for sure about that. There was, do you know Patrice Evra, the soccer player, the footballer who's he was
Mhm.
originally from France and then he went to go play for he went for he I think he played in Italy, I don't know, but he played also in England and many other, like clubs and stuff. I think it's Man U. I don't really know anything about this sport, so I am not going to be like, oh yeah, I follow his career. It's only because I saw him on another reality show, okay, where he was talking about the difference between racism and ignorance. And it was a very short clip, but I think it's really worth mentioning here because he is a black French man who went to Italy, had at the time he was very young. So and he's like in his I think he's in his late 40s now. So this was like maybe 30 years ago. He essentially landed and he describes a story where people started taking pictures of him. And he's like, oh my God, like I'm already famous. Like people already know who I am. Like, people want to like, because, he's there to play for whatever event or team. And then he realized it's because they had never seen a black person in their life, right? And he's like, okay, but recognize this is not racism. This is just ignorance. They just don't know because they literally did not have at the time, like we didn't have the internet like we have now. They literally didn't see because it was like some small part. I don't know where in Italy, but it's like some part where they literally had never seen anyone like this before. And so, of course, they were just like, whoa, can I have a picture with you? Oh my God, it's so cool. And we see videos like that online. I have family from China, and it's a country that was locked out from the rest of the world for a very long time because of internally a lot that was going on. And I do hear when people are like, "Oh, but when people are curious, it's always it's almost like there can't be multiple versions of curiosity, right? It's like people are curious because yeah, in China and other countries, they take pictures also of black people, or in Africa, people take pictures of Asian people because they haven't seen them before. And I'm like, yes, there is that. Of course there is that. Of course that exists. Like if you go to these remote areas, of course it exists, right? Except it's now currently 2025. And with all the technology that exists and how connected we'll call it the free world, is, and all the people that like I had the impression that there was zero Asian people in France before I moved there, just the way that I was treated. And then I was like, oh no, they're all here. They're just like they're just invisible. You know what I mean? Like they really exist. They've been here for generations. But I do feel like it's important to mention that regular curiosity, genuine curiosity can exist, but so does this other version where it is not only more uncomfortable, but can literally be unsafe for certain groups, especially women, right?
Yes. No, this is so true. Yeah. And I feel like, it really depends how people are also treating you,
Yeah.
because there are moments when, people, of course, they would come to you and ask you where you're from and, all of these things. And you can tell that they're like, sitting there because they want to listen to your story. And it's more like, wow, this is incredible. But then there is like oh, I want to check a box, I want to make sure that what you say aligns with what I have in my mind. And like, and if
Yeah.
this is the case, I can tell all of my friends about it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just sometimes very difficult to understand the differences or like to
Yeah.
understand what is what.
Yeah. Yeah, and it
But
takes
I have,
time, right? Like you have to
yeah,
calibrate it to the country and like if you're only there for 2 days, can you really know? Probably not, right? But like for you, you have a lifetime there. You also have lived in many other places. Like you start to build your own radar, I think.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I can definitely tell immediately if somebody's asking out of curiosity, like
Yeah.
genuine
Yeah.
curiosity, that could be maybe ignorance in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And when it's not, like,
Yeah.
yeah, in Italy for sure. And then in other countries, it depends. But when people ask me, "Oh, are you from here? Are you from here?" I also try to see what's the background, like
Mm.
if it's, for example, someone recently asked me, "Are you I think he said Maori or something like that."
Mm.
But we were having a very spiritual conversation and like the topic was a lot heavier than just,
Yeah.
where are you from? And so in that context, I didn't take it as like, oh my God, look at this guy. It's just asking me where I'm from. It was more like, I have a lot of respect for this person. I know he has a lot of knowledge. So if he's asking me, I know this is genuine curiosity
Yeah.
because that's the first time he's seeing me. And then the
Yeah.
topic never came up anymore. And like it was just like, that's it.
Yeah.
But if we didn't have that conversation before, I don't know how would it felt. I don't know if he was a man of knowledge
Mm.
or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the context is also really important. Like
Yeah.
where you are, how you're introduced, how you're treated, that I think that all
Yeah.
matters.
For me, it's not across the board. It's just, yeah, context, and you just go along until you're like, okay, like no, like this is where we're gonna stop. This is me either pumping the brakes or like leaving the conversation or, handling it in your own way because you've had a lifetime of experiences informing this. What I realize also is kind of a big hint, I guess, is how intense, not intense in a sense of like excitation, but intense in the sense like, how much are you really pushing me? Like, do I feel like I'm backed in a corner
Mm,
when I have to answer this question? Like, and why does it feel like, also, why is it coming so early in the conversation? Like, why is this like you can't move on if you don't know, Like you have to like get me to give you the answer that you want. Because I think what you're describing or what you just described is you were already in the middle of a conversation. You were already on deep topics, and then maybe it was related. And so the question came up,
yeah,
right? To kind of be relevant to continuing the conversation. If it's not relevant and it is literally like I am here minding my own business and all of a sudden this like comes out of nowhere, it's a little bit like, why do you need this information and why am I entitled to tell you?
yeah, yeah. I really like that analogy. Like if I feel backed up in a corner, it's
Yeah.
usually like when they want an answer quick and you're
Yeah.
like, why is it now? I remember I was talking with a friend, we were having breakfast somewhere. I think I was at the bathroom and then my friend and this stranger started to talk and then I arrived and I joined them and it's like, oh, okay. And she asked, oh, and where are you from? And my friend answered for me because it was really good. He knew where he was going. He's like, oh, she's
Mm.
from Italy as well. We're both from Italy. They already
Mm.
had this conversation. And then she was like, oh, but you can't possibly be just from Italy. Where are you really from? And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't even know your name. I don't
Yep.
know. Like, I was having coffee with my friend.
Yeah.
Why are you here? You were just passing by. You
Yeah.
decided to stop.
Yeah.
Why do I have to tell you?
Yeah.
And that comment, it bothered me for at least the whole day, but like every now and then throughout the week, he would just pop back in.
Yeah.
While I'm pretty sure that for this woman, life went back to normal and she didn't have anything to worry
Yeah.
about. And so that I think that was such a good example of like unnecessary.
Yeah.
That's just really not needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And just remembering like every country, society has their own flavor of this. So even if what we're describing is like out of context or comments or questions that come in the beginning of the conversation, I mean, I'm just always putting it in different theoretical situations in my head. And I'm like, okay, in Asia, does it work like this? You know, like based on my experiences in other countries, could it be like this? And yeah, for sure. Like if in China, people might literally just walk up to the street and like ask you. But again, it's understanding that if you scale it to the culture and the country, normally in Italian society, it would be extremely rude to just literally be like, what are, you know, like to a white Italian person. Versus literally in China, the way that people talk to each other is almost as if it's like everyone thinks I'm like shouting all the time and like angry when it's just like the way that the communication works, right?
Yeah.
You can be, it's not like you can be, but it's a different, and I'm not saying there's not racism. Oh my God, it's just like I have to always do caveats whenever I say things, but like it's not that it doesn't exist. It's not that it isn't, but it's like you need to learn how to make your radar specific to the society that you're in,
Yeah.
specific to what you are, specific to what you see around you. It takes a lot of observational skills, self-awareness, like deep introspection, a lot of contacts and conversations with other people as well. And it's like a process that you develop over time. And okay, I want to get us to like the other stuff. I just want to say, like, that's why I think we're always starting and stopping these conversations because people are like, but no, that's not what but no, no, you know, like this country and that thing. And I'm like, stop it. Like, why are we ever, even between France and Italy, things are not the same.
Mhm.
So why are we acting like we can make comparisons in every single part of the world?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people just they really get lost with this and it's more like, oh, but I had this experience with somebody else in this other country, so this must be the same. And it's
Yeah.
like so many people in this world. Definitely not gonna have the same experience twice.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Your existence to me is just so again, thank you for, you know, coming on here to talk about really hard things, but also to show and illustrate, I think, to many other people who are out there that they're not like the weird ones, they're not like the exceptions. Like you're someone who embodies and I know it's heavy, but I do think that there's like this saying that's like just because you carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy, right?
Mhm.
But you also don't allow the heaviness to stop you from living your life, which is something that I think a lot of people are struggling with, especially in this day and age. So I kind of want to touch on the really wonderful and positive aspects of being a multicultural, multilingual person and you know, someone who has been able to traverse all like a multitude of experiences. What are some of your favorite things inside of, let's say, the Italian language, or like maybe the way that you can express in different languages that can't like don't translate to other ones?
Hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know
Um,
for a language podcast, I finally asked a language question. Like I just, yeah.
yeah. Well, I feel like I definitely have an Italian humor in
Mm,
the sense that we joke a lot around like we describe things a lot. So I don't know how to explain it. Like we when we joke about something, we really describe it and we kind of make a little theater around it. And I really like, everybody says, oh, Italian people speak with their hands. And I really like that. I really
mm,
enjoy that part. I feel like underneath all of the layers, Italian people are like really warm and really funny to be around. And there's always something nice to talk about, like
mm,
always something that we can connect over. And sometimes it's just when it's abroad, it's always cuisine and it's always food and things like that. But
mm.
I just find it is incredible how, just a few things like that can really bring everyone together.
Yeah.
And I don't have this with, for example, my Australian friends that, I don't think they really have such a rich culture when it comes to food
Mm,
and art in general. So
mm,
this is definitely something that I like. And when I'm abroad, I can connect immediately with other Italian people that are on the same wavelength. And
mm.
yeah, it just feels like home. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the humor, the like the hand
Yeah.
gestures. Yeah. I think you've noticed as as you talk to me, I do a lot of these things. this is what gives me away, apparently in Mandarin, because I was raised also in Mandarin, right? Like as well as English. So Mandarin in the household, English outside. And that was not like a choice. Like the whole like,
Yeah.
how do you raise a multilingual child? It was not a choice. It was just like that's like what it was because of
Yeah.
survival. But I am naturally someone who talks with my hands. And when I speak in Mandarin, I still talk with my hands, and people are like, yeah, you're not like I like your accent's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that. Like I clearly see that you grew up with this language, but like your body language is giving you away. Like what is this westernness I feel? And it's like, yeah, it is
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think I feel the same in English. Like
Mm.
sometimes when I speak with people, they don't move a lot or like really like
How do you do this?
contained.
How do you
Yeah.
just speak your whole life? Like I can't.
Yeah, and it's like I really have to I trained myself to be able to
Mm.
not use my hands as much, and like sometimes I would just keep them like I'm still moving them, they're just not on camera.
Yeah.
Just to show, yeah, no, a little bit more contained, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like there are a few things that like when somebody does it and it's like, oh, that's so Italian, but I like in a positive way. It's like, oh, that's
Mm.
so Italian and I like it. Yeah, keep
Mm-hmm.
doing that.
Mm-hmm. Something that a lot of people talk about is how personalities will shift, and I like to call them language personas or language identities that are specific to their function, right? Like when you have to use it. I don't like to think of it like I change myself because I don't believe I have to change who I am at my core to speak a different language, right? But how I express might change. Uh, do you feel yourself shifting when you speak the
Definitely.
different languages? Yeah, what's that like?
Yeah, I feel like because of all of my personal development happened in English, I feel like I'm more open when I talk in English. I feel like I
Mm.
have maybe I feel like I have a wider range of vocabulary to express my feelings and I know the meaning behind those. And I'm just more open-minded and like social and friendly. And it also happens in Italian, but I need to have the right people around for me to happen. While in English,
Mm.
I feel like it's easier.
Mm.
And then with Portuguese, I sometimes uh Portuguese is different because all of my friends are now online friends and it's different if I had some Brazilian friends here, but
Mm.
it feels a little bit different. But I feel
Mm.
like the only language that makes me a little bit stiff is French, and I think
Mm.
it's just because I don't use it enough.
Sorry, I just every single episode I record with like anybody, somehow it always comes back to how it's like everyone's
Yeah,
living in this. Yeah.
yeah, it's you can't go out of that box.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you like with your French, do you feel like it's just like the fact that because like you learned it in school, do you feel like that's where the rigidity comes from?
Yes, but also I've never really used it
Yeah, and also,
outside.
yeah.
I feel like I because I went to French school in Cameroon and French
Yeah.
school in Senegal. So you
Yeah.
have European vibes and you
Mm-hmm.
learn French from France. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you're outside, that's not the French they're
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah.
And then same thing when I was in school in Italy and I studied French and it was still like French from France, but then in Italy. So the closest thing would be Switzerland, where they also don't speak like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I would be fine to speak French with not French people,
Mm-hmm.
with people that are not from France.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Especially Canadian, I feel very
Yeah.
comfortable, and Belgium, I feel really comfortable. But every time somebody's from France, French from France, I feel like that's where my rigidity comes from. And I feel like I really have to pick my words. I really have to do all of the right liaison and all of the right things.
Mm,
And I feel like if I miss it, even once, they
mm,
will switch to English and then
mm,
the conversation will go in English. And
mm.
I think everybody has this experience with French
Yeah.
people, but it's
Yeah.
like even when I can clearly tell that the person in front of me doesn't speak good English,
Yeah.
they would rather speak English because maybe I spoke the wrong conjugation once.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm gonna be careful. Let's
Yeah.
continue French, please.
Yeah. Which is also crazy with so me living in France and knowing how many people make mistakes. I mean, like French-born French people, and we're gonna say like even white French people, yes, it's possible they make a lot of mistakes
Yeah.
in their actual French and in their writing, in their speaking. And it's how do I know this? It's because like I'm around a lot of them, all the time.
Mm,
And so to pretend that there is some elite standard, and I do think that a lot of people who are born and raised inside of the culture, when they're outside of the country in particular, they're taught to like hold on to this standard. It's like, but you're not even adhering to the standard. Like don't act
yeah.
like don't act like what you're doing, I'm doing, anyone else is doing is like so offensive and so bad because that's a little bit like that's a different territory. That's like
Yeah.
assholery is like what I call it, It's
Yeah.
like it's not about the language then.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And I've learned now, like before, I would let that stop me. So if somebody
Mm.
would, like, we speak French and then I make a mistake and I cannot find the word, and then the person would switch to English, then I would continue with English. And now
Yeah.
just revert back to French. And even if
Yeah.
the person is speaking to me in English, I reply in French
Yeah. Yeah.
because,
Yeah. You hold your ground. Exactly. You
yeah,
don't you
because
keep the
yeah.
conversation in French. Exactly. I know. I only have to do that in Paris, but it's because everywhere else nobody speaks enough English to actually
Mm,
battle me, and so they have no. And I don't speak horrific French. It's just like no, things may not be 100% accurate, just also because I didn't learn it like that long ago, and I'm like just doing my best, right? Every single
yeah.
time, every single day. But I feel like what's surprising to me is a lot of it is attitude. Like I really
Yeah.
realized when dealing with French speaking people from France, a lot of it is this kind of like back and forth, like it's like gotta battle it out,
Yeah.
gotta get past that whatever obstacle, and then we're gonna be okay. But like, yeah, you have to do that all the time first. And I do feel like larger society kind of works that way in France too. Like they'll always tell you like something's not possible, and you're like, no, but it is possible. Like you just have to like go ask the person, like the cheese is not on sale, or sorry, no, it's not for sale because like I can't find the sticker for it. And this is a real situation that happened. It's like the cheese not for sale because there's no sticker. Okay, then go find the sticker. Oh, yes, I can't find the sticker. It's not possible. Why is it not possible? It's not possible. No, that's not an answer. Like it's literally, I'm sure there's a manager. I'm sure there's like a book somewhere with stickers. Like figure
Yeah.
out, like just do the thing that you need. Cause like,
Yeah.
oh no, we can't sell it. You are like your staff here. Go find your manager, please, so that you can sell this cheese because like what is happening here? It's right in front of me. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's more like, they said it's not working, so that's it.
Yeah.
You're just gonna move somewhere else.
Yeah, I know. And you're like, am I having a stroke right now? Like, am I hallucinating the situation? Like, you're kidding me. We're both looking at this cheese and you're like, oh no, can't find the sticker. Like, it's the
That's actually
craziest
very
thing.
funny.
Yeah, right? Like, oh my God, I have so many of these. Do you um do you feel like your personal development in English is also like do you feel like it's just because your experiences happen to be in English? Is that what you're describing as personal development? Or is it more like resources in the language?
I think a little bit of everything because
Mm,
I was in Australia when I started to be more interested in personal development in
mm,
general, and all
mm,
of the books that I was reading, they were all in English.
yeah.
And the conversation that I would have about the books were in English. So it's more like the context. I think if I were in Italy, I would have probably read the books in Italian and the conversation would have been in Italian. So it's just, I was in that period and in that country where everything was in English. And I think that's also why. And I think I also started going to therapy in that period. So everything happened in English, and it was also the only time where I could process my feelings. And I think the only rule that I established from that period was that journaling should have been in Italian, because otherwise it was
Mm,
always English, Italian. That sound like sometimes I still do it, especially with my friends, that like I just put together the two languages. But
mm,
at least when I write, I want to try to just write in Italian full time. And
mm.
I have moments where I'm like, there's not a word that would, describe this feeling as good
Yeah.
as the English one. And maybe
Yeah.
there is, and I just don't know it, but
Yeah.
it's just easier for me to find it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting also because I had someone else tell me that because there's so like the English speaking world is huge, and also there is a lot of interest in bringing in certain concepts in psychology and sociology like into normal life, right? So we use terms like cognitive load all the time, and like it's not like a technical term. It's like something everyone's familiar with. And I really realized, and like, it does exist in other countries, it's just in other languages, but I just feel like there is this kind of push inside of the language that's a result of different societies pushing again for more initiatives to come out. I really realized also how much easier it is to access resources like books, articles, literature, like in English, than it is in other languages. Like I was trying to find stuff in French. I'm like, it doesn't exist. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, there's so much more content that it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's easier. And I feel like, especially if it was written in English, then I would rather read the English version
Yeah.
because it's probably has all of the nuance that Italian translation wouldn't probably have.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to maybe, like, I don't know, it's like more a philosophical concept because I feel like, is it like it's good in a sense that more people are learning English and now we have a huge array of different resources. But then I also feel like, doesn't this shut it out? Like I'm thinking of all the people who only speak one language, like just Italian, just French. Like, doesn't this limit them from accessing all this?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've thought about it very, very often. It's like everyone wants to learn English because of that. And like we have so many English translators, but then I don't think we have enough translators for the other languages.
I know that you said that English is like the communication language, like especially on an international scale. What would you say? I asked this to someone else who's also Italian, by the way, on the podcast. And I asked her, what would you say to people who are saying that English is threatening the survival of other languages and culture with the language? Like,
Mm.
you know.
Well, on some level, I think it is, especially
Mm,
when there are families that they want to speak English in the house, even though they're not from an English speaking country. And I think that's something that, like, if I ever have kids with someone, I mean, in whatever nationality, I feel like unless that person is an English speaker, there would always be Italian and the other language in the house.
mhm,
But I would never speak English to my kids just because, that's the language. But I know a lot of people do, and a lot of family do it because, this way they're more used to, this way it is more Americanized, they can learn quicker. I think it's important to keep your own culture and you can still move away from the country, especially if you don't see a future for your family or for your
mhm,
kids. But
mhm,
some cultures cannot be explained and like I wish I had more, African cultures in my
mhm,
family, and I see why my mom didn't do it because that was not her culture. But at the same time, I think it would have been good to have a couple of celebrations, even though it was just me and her. I think it would have made me feel a little bit more African in that sense.
mm,
And I know this has nothing to do with English, but I feel like a lot of people do that with English. So like, they move from another country and they just speak English.
mm.
And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's good to speak your own language and the language of your country and have all of these different cultures and rituals mixed with other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So it's kind of like an and situation, right?
Yeah,
Rather than like a replacing
yeah, yeah.
type. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have both, but I feel like it's important to keep the roots, even if you don't necessarily love them or like them. I still think it's part of you in some capacity.
Yeah. All right. I think we can end it there. I mean, do you have anything else you wanna just say before we go?
No, it was amazing. No, thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. It was wonderful conversation.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of We Cultivate the Pod. Make sure to subscribe here and wherever you get your podcasts so you can catch new episodes as they become available. I also share After the Mic reflections on Substack, the place where I dive into the themes that stay with me long after recording. Beginning in 2026, you can also find additional bonus content from guests and other We Cultivate extras. Subscribe for free to the Communication Shift on Substack. The link is in the show notes and in this description. Thank you so much for joining us this time, and I will see you in the next episode.